All right. Welcome to the November 22nd Health and Human Relations Commission meeting on a Friday this time. I'm going to call our meeting to order. And first on our agenda, we have to review or approve our minutes from the September and the October meetings. So I'm going to make a movement. Well, first I'm going to ask, did everyone get to read the September minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to make a movement to approve the minutes from our September meeting.
I second that.
And we need to vote on that. I can never remember. So they're approved. I can never remember. All right. Now I'm going to make a movement to approve our October minutes.
I'll second that.
And so we have our October minutes approved. All right. So now into our November minutes and meeting. First of all, I just wanted to say happy Native American Heritage Month and our upcoming holiday season that we are about to get into. I did not have any agenda items submitted online, and I don't see any public that we did not already know about coming. So we're going to move on to number 4 on our agenda to have further review of the Fair Housing Ordinance with added input from Brad Wood with OVO.
Thanks for having me.
So we did look at the Fair Housing Ordinance. I know we had some people who weren't here last time. Did y'all get to look at it as well?
Not ready yet.
Okay. All right. That's okay. We just noted in our last meeting, as you saw in the minutes, that there were some updates that included some language that amended to include some language about familial status, sexual orientation, gender identity, and marital status, and things like that. But we wanted to get more feedback from other people that had more kind of hands-on work with housing in our community. And so we invited Brad. What can you tell us about housing in Jefferson County?
Well, let me start with, my name is Brad Wood. I'm the Executive Director at Ohio Valley Opportunities. We celebrate 60 years next year, which is a massive, big celebration as a nonprofit. We primarily serve Jennings, Jefferson, and Scott, but we have other services in like several other counties as well. We are a community action agency, and we're one of 22 in the state and over 1,000 in the U.S. And we're very proud to be a community action agency because we change people's lives, embody the spirit of hope, and improve communities, and ultimately make America a better place to live. So last year we served 13,700 people, give or take a couple. And we have 4 main programs, Head Start, energy assistance, weatherization, and our Housing Choice Voucher program. You may know Housing Choice Voucher by another name, Section 8, but Housing Choice Voucher is what the program is called. And with that, we serve 2 clients primarily, both the tenant and the landlord. And through that, we do a lot of advocacy work, a lot of education with both the tenant and the landlord, and do a lot of coaching as well. So what it is to be a good tenant, if you have issues, how do you bring that up to the landlord? And then also we have quite a bit of outreach with our landlords, sorry, and do a lot of education around what does it mean to be on the Housing Choice Voucher program, and how do we address issues, together to make sure that people have safe, stable housing. Currently, we have 125 households on the Housing Choice Voucher program in Jefferson County. And um, 44 landlords right now. So, but those numbers, I'm a nerd, so I love numbers, and I think kind of understanding that, is a good thing, so. And I think what I was asked to talk about was kind of discrimination with housing and what we see or what has been reported to us. It's four main areas. The first one is age, and I have some quotes here that we hear. I just don't. I just want to rent to an older couple, or I don't want to rent to anyone with small kids. Familial status. I don't want to rent to a single parent. And you'll notice in the Fair Housing Act, the federal act, after a certain age, it is okay to, just be like senior housing, that type of thing. The third category is pets. No animals or charging a pet rent or fee for a service animal. And that's a really big deal because that's under the Disabilities Act and things of that nature. And then which I was, yes, ma'am.
I have a question, because I know there is a difference then with service animal and with emotional support. So it's just for service animals that they can't discriminate, is that correct? Or if it's emotional support, okay.
Technically, sorry, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Fair Housing Act would say that emotional support animals can't be denied as long as there's appropriate documentation. With service animals, you can't require documentation. So if someone says, this is my service dog, that is what it is, and you can't say any.
So emotional support, then generally they'll have a note from their doctor.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but then they can't say no to that once they have that documentation. Although they do.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the fourth category is income source discrimination. So I don't want to rent anybody who gets disability, or I will not rent or for anyone who has Section 8 voucher. So, and usually in fair housing ordinances, you don't see that piece or the age piece because it's the age piece especially is protected in a different way. So.
Do you or anyone else in the room have an understanding of like how those sorts of cases are sorted out within the system, or is there a process that works in those cases to get housing for people who might be denied?
So yes and no. So that was kind of my, I know that you guys I watched the video from the last meeting to know about this and what was going to be expected of me. And I think that is kind of addressed. I think you guys are further along than what I had prepared for tonight, as far as, making sure that there is a concrete way to address issues. How do those issues get resolved? And ultimately, when someone's in that situation, if they don't know how to advocate for themselves and they don't have an advocate, it can be pretty hopeless, right? And so I did bring some gifts, but being a nerd, they're, just ordinances, examples from other places. So, I have one here from Michigan and then a sample one from, and it's, a little older, but, from Indiana as well. So I do have those for you to look at, but I think having that concrete way of, if someone is feeling discriminated against, how do you approach that? And what kind of avenues, what counts as evidence, or, what kind of investigation can happen with that, and what kind of resolution? No answers, but
No, it's
yeah.
okay. So no answer is, it means it's something we need to work on. We would love to look at examples and maybe after reviewing, we can talk about, something to ask the county commissioners to look at as well. To make sure there's a.
Well, I mean, the ordinance does say the several avenues of relief are available, so those are there. I mean, State Civil Rights Commission, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, and through private action. So I mean, there are some avenues. I don't know that people know about that, so maybe that's what we can help, let people know. But they do have avenues that they can take their cases to.
It's just not local unless it's the last option. Personal
Through private action.
private action. Which would be like getting a lawyer or something like that.
They likely don't have them. I mean,
But I will say, there is a free legal kiosk down at the clearinghouse, that has housing information on it. So, and it has the ability to scan and print and do all the things, so.
So would they be able to, at that kiosk, get information for how to get help or?
Yeah, possibly. I know that, when it was first installed, the, features were pretty limited, but I think, because it's through the Indiana Bar Foundation, they were looking into how to expand features, so, yeah.
So if someone experienced these challenges, they would go to the kiosk and then there would just be information on
Yeah, so
what they should know in terms of their rights, but
yeah, possibly. And that's in the, well, it's open to everybody, but, if they couldn't afford legal aid, they could go to that and then, either be referred on, like it's Christian Legal Clinic or something like that. But they also have other resources as well, that are pro bono services.
With the State Civil Rights Commission, they serve statewide, but would they have to travel to, does anybody know? To access help through the State Civil Rights Foundation? I think that's the hard part is I just don't know how all these processes work. Which, yeah, makes it a challenge to see if it functions. I guess we could reach out to them and ask them how their process works.
Just here, you can file a complaint electronically or via phone within 180 days of the discrimination taking place. And then it says an impartial person, once you report it, an impartial person helps the parties resolve the dispute before a full investigation begins. And then if the mediation doesn't work, then they do an investigation and determination.
is there anything that people utilizing the housing services, or is there anything posted letting them know that? Like, if you feel that there's been discrimination and.
Like if someone's receiving housing choice vouchers? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all of those examples I shared came from, clients, so.
Interesting.
I was curious, just so I can make a note, whenever you had mentioned the amount of properties and landlords that you serve, you were talking about 125 households. Is that through the multiple counties you serve, or is that Jefferson County?
That data is just for Jefferson County.
Okay.
Yeah. Overall, I want to say currently we have, I want to say, and I could be wrong because I didn't pull it, like 340 total-ish. But right now there's a freeze at the state level for housing choice voucher. And so, that number decreases until they open it back up because, people die or, they get, they don't need the vouchers anymore for whatever reason. And so we should be well over that. But, with the, shortfall and all of that, that's frozen.
Because I work on the state Medicaid waiver side of things. So and we're allotted so many things per year, and people fall off, but we can put them on the waiver wait list, or, so the same, is it just like a yearly thing? Do people have to renew yearly to remain qualified into the program?
So yes and no. So again, we serve two clients, right? The
Right.
tenant and the landlord. Every 2 years, the apartment or, dwelling has to be recertified.
Okay.
And so that was like, I'm new in my position, July was when I started. And like day 3, I was out in the field going and doing inspections. It was awesome. I loved it. And meeting people and, hearing about their, because everybody has a story, right? And what, that voucher has meant to them and their family. And so there is a key component to making this all work, and it is that case management piece. And so our case managers develop relationships with their clients, either the tenant or the landlord. And, there's a story recently where, the lady was in an unsafe environment. She was taking care of her grandchild. And although we don't push people in a certain way, we can show them, different pathways. And she was able to get out of that situation, and both her and the grandchild are thriving, so, yeah. But again, because it was unsafe, we were able to have those conversations and address the issues with the landlord, but she decided it was time for her to find a different location, so.
What qualifies as well as being, within utility, like a person with a wheelchair? Or 1, 2 years. What would they need to do to qualify to be able to be a client?
The landlord piece, so we have, there's a lot of paperwork, but we walk people through that. And then it's, also the inspection. And so we work with property managers or the landlords to ensure that it is a safe place. There are a lot of regulations with it. And it's everything from, the outlet isn't grounded right. So, what is that gonna take? Or the big change right now is smoke detectors. That's a big regulation that's changed. And so how do we work with the property manager or the owner to rectify those? But it's a really simple process, it's relative, and again, forming that relationship and answering those questions and walking through that process together.
Then, the voucher portion of it, is that a set amount that's dependent on, I don't know, number of bedrooms or is it fluctuating? How is that determined?
That's a good question.
Or
I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
What I will say is that, we have some clients that, the payment goes directly to the landlord.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily cover the entire rent. And it's based off of, income, family size. There's a whole, metrics. And just because you come in, today and let's say that you receive $200 doesn't mean that, the landlord does, but doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to stay that way over the course of your time with us. That can fluctuate because your circumstances change as well. The thing that I love about Housing Choice Voucher, and with all of our services, is by making a home more energy efficient, by assisting with rent, for, a period of time in their lives. It allows them the internal agency to make decisions with their own budget. And so we hear sometimes people say, because you were able to help with rent, I'm able to afford actual food now. Or I'm able to, there was one lady who was older and She got onto our program and she said, I haven't been able to afford a pair of shoes in 10 years. I got some new shoes, you know. So it is those things that, allowing them that flexibility in their budget to make those decisions to better their family.
So is there like a cap on how many, I noticed a cap on how many vouchers you can give, is there a cap on how many, landlords that can sign up for Jefferson County or Clark, or the other counties?
Yeah. Not necessarily. I, in our community needs assessment, we have identified housing and, housing availability as a huge issue. And what I would say is the more opportunities we have, so that supply and demand, although we are capped, with clients that are tenants, having the availability there of the clients that are landlords, is, I don't think there's a cap on that. So.
I was just curious, working, so closely with, like challenging situations. Can you think of any, like, if there were no, like, money, it wasn't an object or anything like that, what some things could happen in our community that would solve a lot of the problems with housing that y'all see? I'm assuming like having available housing would be one of them.
Yeah, I think availability is one key part. So I think we kind of get stuck in well, if we just had, more housing units available, the problem would go away. But it's a multifaceted problem that requires a multifaceted solution. And so, housing availability is a part of it, but if you can't afford the house, then what's the point of it being built? And then, inflation, cost of groceries, quality jobs, mental health issues. I mean, we could keep going, right? And so if we're focused on the multifaceted solution, housing availability is just one piece of that. And I think I successfully didn't answer your question.
You should run for office.
It's a can of worms. I mean, you're going from, like you pull one string and then, you're left with, a ball of yarn that leads somewhere else. And I think it takes all of us together to do it, so.
So when it's like an apartment complex or duplex, does that, there's more than one family, is that like a voucher per family or one voucher? For like if there's 7 families and out of 7 families, 4 of them need vouchers, does one payment get sent to that apartment complex and that's considered one client, or each one of those 4 families within there, is that then now 4 clients?
If I'm understanding what you're asking correctly, if 4 families qualify, that is 4 payments to the landlord.
Like
We-
including in like an apartment complex, so it'd be 4
Yeah.
different ones.
But I'm trying to remember because when we sign checks once a month for that, if it's for each family or if we have a contract with the landlord and they know which families are receiving it and we pay them, like just one check, like a lump sum.
But the complex can be
Oh, yeah.
like mixed. It can be people that pay individually and then also
Yeah.
people with vouchers.
Yeah. Let me rest I'm sorry.
No.
No. I'm sorry.
That's look, my question, I think it'd be like, let's say at this building right here, and all of us live in this apartment complex right here.
Mhm.
Is this considered one client? Or is this considered one client, 2 client, 3 client? It goes into.
Are we in separate apartments in the same complex?
Yeah, so it's actually 4 clients
Okay.
because the landlord is one.
Any other questions?
So one thing we've tried to focus on as well is health side of things, getting resources to folks. Would that be a plus for some of your clients to know? Cause I mean, I know you said the process was simple, but it's a government process and
Right.
let's be clear. I don't think I found one of those yet. But so, I mean, getting information to folks that may not know, cause I know you can go onto our website. I think it's supposed to be moved to the front page. I'm pretty sure it has been, but still figuring out where that kind of information is available. I mean, just like you said, the kiosk, do people know it's there? I mean, it's great, it's there, but still at the same time, getting that information to folks. So I don't know if there's something that through your organization, we could make sure that information gets passed along.
Yeah.
So we'll try to work, maybe it may be more in a flyer to start with, just so people can, it's easy to hand to them and say, well, you need to go to this link. That's sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that, the availability of information is key, right? So like the kiosk is actually in every county in Indiana. But, being able to have that information, and our case managers love having that information, because that way they can better serve their clients. And, knowing resources, we don't have, money to pay for everything. And so being able to partner and know what other resources are out there, to better serve the people that we serve, so.
I think we have some processing to do. But yeah, if you do want to leave those, ordinances with us, we can review and kind of look into what other counties have done and if it is a fit or not for our county, or if we don't get to decide that. Or something we want to propose, then look into to the commissioners.
Could I ask an additional question?
Absolutely.
Could you share maybe why those are the communities that you chose to provide us samples and what was compelling about those samples that you picked for us?
They were examples.
And it was because they detail the process? Is that
Not necessarily. I didn't know how far along you were.
Right.
And so, there, one is from Indiana and it's a, example. And then there's also information about the Fair Housing Act as well. It's just a primer. I didn't know if you were just starting or, whatever. So, yeah. I do have one thing I do want to say before my time is ended.
Well,
Is that I would invite each of you to come down and see the work that we do. We love hosting. We have a meeting room, so if you want to have a meeting down there at some point, but we love telling people what we do and the success of the people that we serve.
So much. Thank you. Thank you for coming. You are welcome to stay. Yeah. But you are not required to.
Well, I think I'm gonna head out. I have beef stew at home.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
we lost the beef stew.
Yeah. Have a good night, y'all.
Brad. Great. All right. Great. So, still on number 4 on our agenda. I have not made the website updates. I wanted to check with our two, who weren't here at the last meeting to basically get verbal permission to put photos of us on the website.
Yes,
Okay.
representation.
I also got a little distracted this time around, so it's fine. And then the other thing we had for follow-up on other action items, was the update on wetlands herbicide issue from last year, where, the Chelsea wetlands area, there was some herbicide spraying going on, and it was brought to our attention, and we were just kind of wondering how that has, proceeded.
Sure. So, I guess, the highway superintendent had looked at those areas along New Bethel Road and Reardon Road. I guess there was some spraying, but I guess there are certain areas that they are not supposed to spray, and they said they stayed clear of those. There are a couple areas that they did. I think the bigger question was, LG&E was spraying along the power lines in there. I know, Mrs. Turner had reached out to them and she had a meeting with them and she had some minutes, but when she sent her email to me, it didn't. So I didn't get attached. So I'd asked her to send them, but I didn't get them back. So I don't know, what that conversation was, but that is indeed through the Flatwoods Nature Preserve, because those power towers run through there. So I can reach out to her again and see what she found out. If she, it's been a little over a year, but I can see if what she found out from them. But she did have a meeting with them, and I didn't hear anything from her after my email to her, so I don't know if she felt like was satisfied or if she's still talking to LG&E. That's who owns the power towers through that area.
I have noticed, it doesn't look like they've sprayed lately. It's nice and bountiful.
The part that I can, there are parts that I can see, and I've never really down Reardon Road. And that's,
It is a gravel road.
yes, I'm sure. Really couldn't tell you about that part, but.
All right, I will consider that an update, and should we make it an action step to follow up with, Ms. Turner?
I can reach out to them and try again, say we were interested in, since you had any further discussion.
And just to double check my work, were there any other action items that I didn't have listed on our agenda that we need to look at?
We invited Brentwood, we approved our past meeting minutes. David Kramer followed up about the wetlands issue. Those are the primary ones that I think.
Okay, great. Then we can move on to number 5, new business from commission members. I had just a couple things to bring up, but did anybody else have anything before I get started? Okay. All right. The things I wanted to chat about, was there's been a lot of like chatter about wedding officiants, and basically having resources available for people who need wedding officiants that are LGBTQIA plus affirming. So I started working with a few people, Tammy and Catherine Knott, the college chaplain at Hanover College, and just started putting together a list of LGBTQIA plus wedding officiants in our county. And I made a pretty document.
Really nice. I didn't reply to, but I had approached Jane about this idea that just someone I work with had brought up that lives in Bartholomew County, that she had gotten ordained to marry her daughter and her daughter's fiance because they couldn't find anyone in Bartholomew County who would. So there probably are people, but she didn't know any resource or how to find that. And so I asked, we have anything like that, like a list or something? And Jane, being the go-getter, you give her an idea. She runs.
I like to make things.
Curious.
Sorry, I didn't email it out before, but this is what it looks like. There's several that are connected to churches. There are others who are just general officiants that are not affiliated with a denomination or a church. So there's right now 7.
And I have at least 2 more to add, yeah.
Great.
In Jefferson County.
Uh-huh.
And I have more that aren't in our county that are nearby, so I might be able to make a regional list as well.
Wow.
And I'm bringing it up here because I'm interested basically to maybe post it on our HHRC website as a resource.
Yeah.
I vote yes.
I'll make a movement in just a moment. Okay. All right, and there's other things too that might be helpful, like spaces, vendors, photographers, bakers, things like that. That can be, it can be a stressful process to try to find, affirming people to do those things sometimes. So if we can take the stress out of that process and, I think that's something that would be good for our community. And to be able to share it in possibly other spaces as well. So I think the first thing I want to do is ask, to make a motion to, put this as a resource on our HHRC website. So,
Second.
Dennis? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. I think those are all the things I have to ask. So we'll approve that. And we'll see how the other things build out. I'm also curious to know if anybody has ideas of how to further, like, share the document. If it's on our website, we can always send a link, but, is it something we want to share on social media personally, or is it something we can ask the county, if they want to share on their social media?
I think it would be nice at some, like, yes. And also, if we're also identifying venues and things, I think it'd be great if these officiants had a venue list, and if the venues had an officiant list, so that if people can reach one of the places that could meet their needs, they could get assistance in having a direction to go.
That makes sense. Okay, so reaching out to everyone to communicate the information. Great.
To make
Well,
that-
and probably in this room, just like personally, if we printed some, I mean, there's places like, I have a relationship with Colleen, the owner of Richwood, which is an affirming space and hosts many PFLAG events. And, you know, that might be something she would like to have to give to prospective couples, when she's doing her tour or whatever with the, place. And, yeah, I think even like the Chandlers have, I know people have done wedding, at least photographs inside their hotel. You know, but I feel like there's people that we could
Yeah.
maybe give flyers to that night.
Okay.
Kind of.
I might reach out to the Rainbow River Club
Yeah, Larry would,
and people.
and people, yeah, yeah. I'm on the board for Pride for this year.
Okay.
So
Great.
we can sure think of that as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good, we'll just roll with them.
We should have them at Pride. Do we have a table there?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
perfect.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great place to.
I think P-Flag is doing a silent disco at some point in January, early January, at the Red Bicycle Hall.
And they've got, a bingo night coming up. We could have it there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, would it be okay if we just have Sarah print us some copies that we can distribute? Okay, that'd be great. Wonderful. I'm ready to go. I will bring some nearby. I'm making a to-do list for myself. Okay. Great. Any other ideas or topics on that particular bullet point with the wedding officiants?
I kind of like the idea of if we are, like, maybe one of those expectations for inclusion on that list is to accept all of the additional information of the other things that might fit in those categories to help. That, I like that idea of kind of making each of those folks more helpful resources by kind of
Yeah,
giving them.
make it a network.
Yeah.
A network of information.
Mhm.
I like that. Okay. The other thing, and something that just kind of came to me this week, I was at a Hanover Town Council meeting on Tuesday, and we were updating our holiday calendar. And I asked if we had ever talked about it before, so I wanted to bring it up here too as like a county-wide thing. Have we ever had discussions? And I guess this is specifically for Dave because I haven't been to every county council meeting. Have we ever had discussions?
Neither I, so. So I'm the county
I don't have
commissioner.
much historical knowledge about the commissioners meeting. Have we had discussions in the past about Columbus Day, being recognized also or solely as, Indigenous Peoples' Day?
I don't think we've had any of those discussions.
Cause I know right now Indiana is still labeled as like a Columbus Day state, but individual communities have kind of shifted one way or the other or recognized both on the same day. And it's something I bring up just, having spent Columbus Day learning more about Christopher Columbus, which is not really a pleasant thing to do. And I kind of dug a little deeper with it this year and, you know, on top of the things I already knew about genocide and enslaving people, I learned that he was also really terrible to the people who came to settle with him, so much so that he was apprehended and sent back to Spain, and then his titles were taken away from him. And so I was just kind of, I don't know, it made me think even harder about the holiday and wondering if it's something that we should temper with honoring the people that kind of persevered through all the things that he kind of brought upon them. So yeah, the Hanover Town Council voted to add Indigenous Peoples' Day, with Columbus Day on the slash. So celebrating both. And I was wondering if that's something that we as a committee could ask the county commissioners to consider.
We may be doing it already, I just don't know. I can check and see what.
I think I looked at the calendar and it did just say Columbus Day. I know a lot of calendars will say one or the other or both now, so it's just kind of a decision that has to be made and voted upon. I think I said at the town council meeting too, in a state named Indiana, I really I feel like we should be doing better to honor the Indigenous people. Since so many were pushed out of our state, but we still name them as our state. So it's something that we could really do a little more work on. Probably a lot more work on, actually. But we will work on that, so. So do I need to make a movement or are you still looking at the calendar just to verify?
Still looking at our
Okay.
Facebook page to see.
Well, about it more next meeting. I asked at the beginning if anybody had any other new business. I'll ask it again before we move on. Good to go? All right. So number 6 is to review action items for the next meeting.
I have, Dave will follow up with Dr. Turner to see if there are additional needs for follow-up about the wetlands herbicide issue. And the Dave Graham will look into whether or not the Indigenous Peoples' Day observance is an active conversation in our community.
Wonderful. Did anybody have any others to add for themselves or others? I'm gonna think about the best way for us to visit OVO.
Field trip.
Yeah. I know that we can't have like a meeting outside of like a public meeting space.
Mhm.
So it may be, in the future, we can talk about maybe doing another like, committee group to focus on housing, learn more. And then some of us could go and do that as a separate committee to do that and bring it back to share. So yeah. So I'm gonna ponder on that. I don't know if that has to be an action item, but, it's gonna be marinating, so. So number 7 is our future meeting dates, which are January 2nd. We, in our last meeting, figured out that just December was not a great time to meet, because it falls right at the holidays where a lot of people are gonna be out of town. So, right after New Year's is when we're gonna meet, and then we'll have another January meeting later in the month on the 30th. And then February 27th will follow that. And number 8 is adjournment, so I am going to move to adjourn our meeting. Do I have a second? All right, BJ's the second, and we are adjourned.